What's up YouTube, capital G here, talking about a card that I have found myself putting in more and more of my decks over the past couple of weeks. A card that, if you'd have asked me my honest opinion on maybe a month and a half ago, I would have said, I don't think it's honestly that strong. It probably won't be meta relevant anytime soon. A card that I now think is dangerously close to being undervalued. The card I am discussing and talking about is Instant Fusion, and I am not even here to try and make the argument that Instant Fusion is as strong as it was earlier in the year, because not only would that be asinine, but I mean, most of you guys would just assert the clear fact that Elder Entity NORDEN is still banned, and to me and to most people, like, that was the epitome of playmaking when it came to Instant Fusion. Like, that was Instant Fusion at its most valuable. Hell, we even had a period in time where, you know, some people argued that maybe Instant Fusion should be limited to one, etc., etc. The card was at its best when NORDEN was in the game, because we know all the playmaking, all the shenanigans, and how powerful that combination was. One card basically defined the other card, and I guess you could say vice versa. But I feel like Instant Fusion right now is extremely strong, and the card has actually gotten better, and some of the downsides have kind of been taken away from the card. Now, I feel like at the beginning of this video, I should state that I don't believe that the Reigns era was a good thing for Instant Fusion. Maybe if NORDEN was still legal in the game, it would be, because NORDEN taking up your extra monster zone wouldn't be all that relevant, because NORDEN would summon back another monster and you'd have two monsters on the field ready for either your old school rank 4 play, or obviously you'd have a play ready, you'd have a Link 2 right there on the field just off the Instant Fusion. But right now, getting a fusion monster in your extra deck, it feels like it's kind of clunky when you're using one card and then having to summon another monster. Now you're using a couple cards. You're not really making that awesome advantage that you used to be able to get with NORDEN. But I don't know if people have noticed this. LINKURIBOH is a game changer, and what it does is it takes an Instant Fusion play that was just kind of okay, and it makes it incredibly strong, and in my opinion, very splashable right now. That's why I find myself putting Instant Fusion into a ton of decks. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm alluding to, the play is obviously activating Instant Fusion and then getting Thousand Eyes Restrict and going from there. That used to be a pretty decent play before LINKURIBOH, but now it's a very strong play. The reason why it was a decent play is because it gave you a 1-for-1. Like, you get your Thousand Eyes Restrict, which would, you know, ultimately die during the end phase. You'd suck up one of your opponent's monsters. So even though you temporarily went +1, you had a monster that couldn't attack. It kind of brought your pace to a screeching halt, because Thousand Eyes Restrict was on the field. It kind of stopped all your other monsters from being able to do any damage. So even though you got rid of one of your opponent's monsters, your Thousand Eyes Restrict died, and, you know, it kind of made it so you couldn't use your battle phase. In a best case scenario, maybe you could use it for a synchro summon, or maybe you could tribute it away. Those were nice little, you know, plays that were possible, but not for every deck, obviously. But now you insert LINKURIBOH into the mix of Instant Fusion, and it honestly feels like in a lot of these decks, it's night and day in terms of how effective the card can actually be, and if you'd actually want to run it. Let's take it in the context of some of the decks that I actually like, right? So let's talk about Batteryman for starters. So if you activate Instant Fusion now, not only do you still get the old play where you can summon a Thousand Eyes Restrict, you can get rid of an opponent's monster, and yes, obviously, you could always tribute a Thousand Eyes Restrict for something like Charger or maybe Fuel Cell. But let's just say that you didn't have those plays, and maybe you had to go a weird route to trying to pull off an OTK. We already know that Batteryman is an OTK primary focus deck. You really can't afford to ever give up your battle phase. Let's say that I had to pull off something kind of wonky. Maybe I summon a 9-volt and I go for the Industrial Strength. And the old position with Thousand Eyes Restrict on the field, I wouldn't be able to attack. So I can't really push for damage, and 9-volt kills itself during the end phase. So pushing for damage that turn with Batteryman is kind of important. Now if I take that Thousand Eyes Restrict, I turn it into a LINKURIBOH, not only am I getting 300 more damage, but guess what? My battle phase is back online. Maybe now I can potentially kill you if you look at it in the context of a deck like LUNALIGHT, where I was experimenting with it as well. Not only do, again, I still get the old school play of summoning Thousand Eyes Restrict, sucking up one of your opponent's monsters, but this is especially important in a deck that does not have its own Link monsters, because now LINKURIBOH opens up an extra monster zone. Now I can still summon my Leo Dancer or my Panther Dancer, and since I just took your problem monster with something like the Thousand Eyes Restrict, maybe I don't have to expend that damage of a Leo Dancer attack into your monster. Maybe I can use that to attack you directly, so I'm getting more damage, I'm being able to open up slots, I'm not really losing out on my battle phase at all, and it really feels like these decks are going to benefit so much more. You can even look at it in the context of Thousand Eyes Restrict and it being a spellcaster, which right now, let's be honest guys, ever since the release of Spellbook of Knowledge, spellcasters are kind of on their way up, and that's obviously because, you know, you've got the Spellbook engine now. You don't even have to run Blue Boy, but even if you don't want to go Linkuriboh route, right? Let's say you're playing like a Prophecy deck or you're running an Invoke deck. If you summon Thousand Eyes Restrict and you suck up one of your opponent's monsters, even if you were playing something like Invoked, it's not necessarily going to clog up your extra monster zone, because you can obviously use Spellbook of Knowledge, you can get it off the field, you can draw a couple of cards, and you haven't even committed your normal summon. I feel like Instant Fusion is just absolutely fantastic now, and it's not even just the playmaking ability that Instant Fusion has and how Linkuriboh has bolstered its abilities, but I kind of feel like it's become better by default. I don't know if people have really noticed this, but our spell pool probably over the last couple of ban lists has gotten pinched and pinched and pinched. And what I mean by that is our spell pool is arguably just getting weaker. I say that because I'm really talking about getting rid of monsters on the field. You guys know that Interrupted Slumber just recently went to 1, so it's a lot less reliable than it was before. Obviously, Dark Hole was at 2. Now you can't run that at 2 anymore. It's another card that's at 1. So again, it makes it a little more difficult to get big monsters off the board. Instant Fusion steps in there, handles a monster, still gives you out a monster, opens up an extra monster zone, doesn't reduce or doesn't restrict your battle phase, and I still feel like it's just really good. Even if you went another old route where your extra deck, where your extra monster zone spot wasn't really that relevant, if you had something like Batteryman, going for a RAIDJIN, putting it face down so it wouldn't be destroyed, if you can play defense for a turn or so, that can actually be a very legitimate play. People underrate and they don't realize how difficult and how annoying, I'm not gonna say difficult, really how annoying a card like RAIDJIN can actually be, the invoked monster. If your opponent has something that can Book of Moon you every single turn, you just obviously have to protect it for a turn. So I feel like Instant Fusion has just become a lot stronger of a card, and it's kind of crazy how just one little card integrated into our game, Linkuriboh, has changed my opinions on Instant Fusion as a whole. I'm not saying that it is nearly as strong as it was before, because it just doesn't have that level of versatility. You know, being able to go into pretty much any rank 4, even some of the rank 5s like Utopia the Lightning, like the plays now don't compare to that. But I think that if you're looking for some playmaking cards, especially ones that don't require your normal summon, which is really nice. Think of cards like Gofu and Brilliant Fusion. But what I really like about Instant Fusion in comparison to some of those one card playmakers, the Scapegoat and the Grinder Golems, Brilliant Fusion, whatever, is the fact that it feels like Instant Fusion comes in a nice little neat package. It doesn't require that much main deck space or extra deck space. At worst, you're looking at maybe 3 cards, 1 in the main deck and just 2 in the extra deck. And with so many cards running level 1 monsters like Spirals and all these other decks, maybe you're running a Linkuriboh already anyways. But if you compare it to something I love like Scapegoat or Grinder Golem, you do realize that those cards require you to run like 5 or 6 Link monsters in your extra deck, because you need every single one of those monsters to potentially facilitate when you pop off with it, which is really nice. But obviously when you don't pop off at it, you're looking at your extra deck and thinking, oh my goodness, I can't run X, Y, and Z because I have to spend a third of my extra deck for this one Scapegoat or for this Grinder Golem. You guys know the multiple times that you draw the Garnet and you just facepalm and thinking, oh my goodness, why am I running Brilliant Fusion? Oh right, because it has a super high ceiling. So it's really nice that you don't have to run any brick cards or anything like that. You don't have to run Shine Balls, and you don't have to allot all this extra deck space. It's just a nice little neat package. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. I feel like Instant Fusion is an incredibly solid card right now, and again, where our good spell lineup just seems to be kind of shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, I feel like it has more value. It's not just Linkuriboh, but it's also things like Spellbook of Knowledge just being fantastic in the game. The fact that it can suck up a monster and be a little bit of a playmaker without you having to use your normal summon, I just find it to be very strong. So whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos. This video has been brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audible.com/megacapital G. Over 180,000 audiobooks to download. And if you get rid of your free trial, you still keep the book. I'm listening to Super Sales on Superheroes by William D. Aaron. Link in the description.